You could tell a lot about a bounty hunter based on their ship, because it's not just a vehicle to get to and from work. For a lot of them, it was their semi-permanent home. Dengar, as we see him in the Clone Wars, is a lovable rapscallion with a team. However, eventually he decides to go solo and becomes a lot more serious. So much so that he names his ship, a Jumpmaster 5000 variant, the Punishing One. You might think, being a bounty hunter and all, a high priority might be placed on having a place to put a bounty, but not for Dengar. He decided to just not bring anybody in alive, so he had no real prison system on his ship. Dengar much preferred shorter missions, which is good because the Punishing One could only hold like 2 months of consumables on board, but it did have an additional 500 kilograms in the cargo hold, which is not a whole lot of space, especially depending on the bounties you're picking up. Their bodies will take up quite a bit of space. Most bounty hunters shelled out for a state-of-the-art hyperdrive, but Dengar preferred to deal with his problems in real space, instead preferring to upgrade his engine as well as his weapons and sensors. In lieu of having a gunner, he instead decided to have a permanently integrated astromech help take care of a lot of the aiming, and the weapons included a quad laser cannon, an ion cannon, and a proton launcher just in case. But all those customizations definitely came at a cost, so the total cost for this ship was roughly around 416,000 credits for a single-person starfighter. Boba Fett's iconic ship was the Slave One, a modified Firespray 31, which we have to thank for one of the best sounds in all of fiction. Boba was nothing if not prepared. He had a cloaking device, he had jamming and decoy systems, as well as a sensor mask just in case. Oh, and prisoner capacity, he had enough for 6 because a lost bounty is lost profit. And just in case, he had one that had the capability of holding a Jedi Knight. And in case he did actually forget something, no, he probably didn't, because he had over 40 metric tons of cargo space on this thing, all while 2/3 of the interior of the ship were completely dedicated to the engines, which allowed it to keep up and even outpace some starfighters like the Y-Wings. Which is ridiculously impressive considering the size difference between the two ships, especially considering that it still had space for 2 additional pilots and a Spartan living space for Boba Fett himself. And as for the armament, I wrote it down because it was so annoying to keep switching back and forth to the reference: 2 twin rotating cannons, 2 concussive missile launchers, an ion cannon for those pesky shields, 2 proton torpedo launchers with 3 each, a tractor beam because why the heck not, and of course you can't forget the special launcher which launched homing devices, but most importantly, the seismic charges. However, every single added feature is also an additional cost, and so this thing ended up being one of the more expensive bounty hunter ships at just over 726,000 credits. Bossk was rolling up to bounties in the Hound's Tooth, a ship described as a floating slaughterhouse to those that managed to escape it, and it was a modified YV-666 light freighter. And being a light freighter, it had a good amount of extra space, which Bossk put to good use. He had, of course, his private living quarters, he had an advanced medical bay, he had an armory, a training center, but most importantly, his prison, which could hold up to 4 prisoners, which also held his trophy room. And a skinning table right in front of the cells, because he enjoyed skinning Wookiees in front of their families because he's a psychopath. And Matrushkadald, inside that ship, he actually had another ship called the Nashta Pup, which was a modified Z-95 Hen Hunter, which he used as a scouting ship. Now Bossk much preferred to finish his fights face to face rather than from behind the wheel of his ship, so his armaments were a little bit bare boned for the Hound's Tooth. It only had 1 quad laser turret, an ion cannon in case the enemy had shields, and a single missile launcher which came with like 6 missiles. Bossk wasn't a super big fan of day-to-day running of ship systems, and considering he ate his own father, crew was kind of out of the question, so instead he had a droid brain integrated with the ship to take care of all that for him. However, all of this included, he still only spent like 480,000 total to customize the ship.